The little girl had walked 6 miles beneath the burning Wyoming sun, but she did not cry until the rancher asked why she was holding her mother's apron. Gideon Mercer had faced wild cattle, armed thieves, winter storms, and years of loneliness without ever showing fear. Yet the sight of the barefoot child standing inside his ranch house left him unable to speak. She could not have been older than 7. Her brown hair hung in 2 loose braids, and dust covered her faded yellow dress. Small scratches marked her knees, and her bare feet were red from the rocky trail. In both hands, she held a white apron covered with tiny blue flowers. Gideon slowly rose from the desk in his study. He had been checking ranch accounts when he heard the front door open. At first, he thought one of his workers had entered without knocking. Then he saw the child. "Where did you come from?" he asked. The girl swallowed and tightened her grip on the apron. "My name is Lily Parker, sir." Gideon looked toward the hall, expecting an adult to appear behind her. "Where are your parents, Lily?" Her brave expression weakened. "My mama is at home. She is too sick to stand." Gideon's eyes narrowed with concern. "Who is your mother?" "Clara Parker. She cooks here." Gideon stared at her. Clara had worked at Cedar Ridge Ranch for nearly 4 months. She arrived before sunrise every morning, prepared meals for the ranch hands, cleaned the kitchen, and returned to her small cabin before dark. She rarely spoke about herself, and Gideon had never asked many questions. He had not known she had a daughter. Lily carefully unfolded the apron. "Mama kept trying to put this on this morning," she explained. "But she fell beside the bed. Mrs. Dalton said Mama needed a doctor, but Mama kept saying she had to come here and make breakfast." Gideon stepped around the desk. "Is someone with her now?" "Mrs. Dalton went to get Dr. Webb." "And you came here alone?" Lily nodded. Gideon looked down at her injured feet. "How far did you walk?" 6 miles, sir." His face hardened, not with anger at her, but at the thought of a small child crossing open country alone. "Why would you do that?" Lily lifted the apron toward him, as if it answered everything. "I came to do Mama's work." The words entered the quiet room and seemed to remain there. Gideon had heard desperate men beg for jobs. He had watched proud ranchers lose everything to drought. He had seen families leave their homes with nothing but a wagon and a few blankets. But he had never seen a child offer herself in place of her sick mother. "You came to cook breakfast?" he asked slowly. Lily nodded again. "Mama said if she missed work, you might hire someone else. She said we could lose our cabin. We do not have anywhere else to go." Her lower lip trembled, but she quickly pressed it tight. "I know how she makes biscuits. I watch her every morning before she leaves. I can fry bacon, too. I might need help lifting the heavy pan, but I can do everything else." Gideon looked away for a moment. The ranch house suddenly felt too large and too quiet. He had inherited land, cattle, and money from his father. Clara Parker had almost nothing, yet she had dragged herself from bed while burning with fever because she feared losing the small cabin that came with her job. And her daughter had walked 6 miles to protect it. Gideon lowered himself until he was at Lily's height. "You crossed the North Creek by yourself?" "Yes, sir." "The water can be deep." "I used the flat stones." "And what about the ridge near Miller's Pass?" "I followed the fence until I saw your red barn." "Were you frightened?" Lily looked down at the apron. "A little." "Why did you keep walking?" Her answer came without hesitation. "Because Mama always keeps walking." Something tightened in Gideon's chest. He had spent years believing courage belonged to men who rode into danger. Now he saw it in a tired little girl with bleeding feet and dust on her face. Lily looked up at him. "Please do not fire her, Mr. Mercer. Mama works real hard. She was not being lazy. She tried to come, but she could not breathe right." "I am not going to fire your mother." Lily's eyes widened. "You are not?" "No." Relief moved across her face so quickly that Gideon nearly smiled. Then she glanced toward the kitchen. "But the men still need breakfast." For the first time in years, Gideon felt close to tears. He stood and held out his hand. "Before we worry about breakfast, we are going to clean those feet." Lily hesitated. "Mama's apron might get dirty." "I reckon an apron can be washed." She placed her small hand in his. Gideon led her through the long hallway into the kitchen. Morning light poured through the windows, shining across the wooden table and iron stove. Lily stopped in the doorway. The kitchen must have looked enormous to her. She stared at the shelves of flour, sugar, coffee, and canned fruit. Then she looked at the large stove where Clara prepared meals for nearly 20 men each day. Without being told, Lily tied the flowered apron around her waist. It was far too long. The bottom touched the floor and the strings wrapped around her twice. She folded the cloth upward, just as she had probably watched her mother do. "Mama starts with biscuits," she said. Gideon brought a chair from the table and placed it beside the counter. "Can you reach from there?" "I think so." Lily climbed onto the chair and opened the flour container. She tried to lift the wooden scoop, but her hands shook from exhaustion. Flour spilled across the counter and onto the floor. She froze. "I am sorry. It is only flour." Lily stared at him as if she expected anger. Gideon handed her a smaller cup. "Try this." She measured flour into a bowl, then added salt and baking powder. Her movements were careful, but she kept looking toward the door, perhaps imagining her mother walking in to correct her. "What comes next?" Gideon asked. "Cold butter." He found the butter while Lily rubbed her tired eyes. Gideon noticed the dark circles beneath them. "When did you last eat?" She became very interested in the bowl. "Lily, yesterday afternoon." "Why not supper?" "Mama did not feel good enough to cook, and we were saving the bread for today." Gideon put the butter down. He cut a piece of bread, covered it with blackberry jam, and placed it in front of her. "Eat." "But breakfast." "The ranch will survive another few minutes." Lily took a small bite, then another. Soon she was eating quickly, though she tried to hide how hungry she was. Gideon poured her a cup of milk. "Slow down." She obeyed, but her eyes remained on the bread. As she ate, Gideon studied the child. Her dress had been repaired many times. One sleeve was made from cloth that did not match the rest. Her braids had been tied with pieces of string instead of ribbon. Clara had been working in his kitchen every day, while her daughter sometimes went without supper. He felt ashamed that he had never noticed. When Lily finished eating, she wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "Thank you. Now we can make biscuits." They worked together. Lily explained everything she remembered. She told Gideon how Clara mixed the dough gently and never pressed too hard. She showed him how her mother shaped each biscuit with the rim of a tin cup. The first batch came out uneven. Some were thick, others thin, and one burned at the edge. Lily looked at them with disappointment. "Mamas are better. I expect she has more practice." "What if the men do not like them?" "They will eat them." "How do you know?" "Because I own the ranch." A small smile appeared on Lily's face. The smile disappeared when hurried footsteps sounded outside. The back door opened, and Gideon's foreman, Wyatt Boone, entered. "There you are," Wyatt said. "The men are wondering about breakfast." Then he saw Lily standing on the chair in Clara's apron. "What is a child doing in here?" Gideon's expression warned him to choose his next words carefully. "This is Clara Parker's daughter." Wyatt looked surprised. "I did not know she had one." "Neither did I." Lily climbed down from the chair. "My mama is sick, but we made biscuits." Wyatt looked from the child to Gideon. "Is Clara coming in later?" "No, she will not be working until a doctor says she is well." Wyatt lowered his voice. "We need a cook. We already have one. But if she is sick for long, we should find someone dependable." Lily heard every word. Her small face turned pale. Gideon stepped between her and the foreman. Clara Parker is dependable. That discussion is finished. Wyatt glanced at Lily's bare feet and the apron around her waist. His expression softened, though concern remained in his eyes. I did not mean anything against her. Take the biscuits to the bunkhouse, Gideon ordered. Tell the men breakfast is late because their cook walked 6 miles to make it. Wyatt looked confused. Gideon rested a hand on Lily's shoulder. This cook. Wyatt picked up the tray and left without another word. Lily looked at Gideon. You really will not replace Mama. I gave you my word. She reached into the apron pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I almost forgot. What is that? Mama wrote it last night before she got real sick. She told me to give it to you if something happened to her. Gideon took the letter. His name was written across the front in Clara's careful handwriting. He unfolded it. The first lines were an apology for missing work. The next lines asked him to let Lily remain in the cabin until Mrs. Dalton could find somewhere safe for her. Then Gideon reached the final sentence. His face changed. Clara had written that if she died, a man named Everett Shaw must never be allowed to find Lily. Before Gideon could ask what it meant, the sound of a horse came from the yard. A rider stopped outside the ranch house. Lily moved closer to Gideon and stared through the window. All the color left her face. That is him, she whispered. Gideon turned toward her. Who? The little girl gripped her mother's apron with both hands. The man Mama told us to run from. The rider outside wore a black coat despite the August heat. He sat tall in the saddle, studying Cedar Ridge Ranch as if he had come to claim it. His horse was expensive, his boots were polished, and a silver watch chain crossed his vest. Nothing about him looked dangerous at first glance. But Lily trembled beside Gideon. He came to our cabin before, she whispered. Mama locked the door and made me hide under the bed. Gideon folded Clara's letter and placed it inside his shirt. Stay behind me. The front door opened before he reached it. Everett Shaw stepped into the ranch house without knocking. He removed his hat and smiled as if he were visiting an old friend. You must be Gideon Mercer. Gideon stopped in the center of the hall. And you must be a man who does not understand doors. Everett's smile weakened. I am looking for Clara Parker. She is not here. I know I stopped at her cabin first. Lily made a small sound behind Gideon. Everett looked past him and saw her. There she is. He stepped forward. Gideon blocked his path. You will stay where you are. Everett studied him carefully. I do not believe this concerns you. A frightened child is standing in my house. That makes it my concern. Everett put his hat on the table. My name is Everett Shaw. Clara knows me. The girl knows me too. I know enough to understand they are afraid of you. Everett gave a quiet laugh. Clara has always been skilled at making herself look like a victim. Lily gripped the back of Gideon's shirt. Gideon felt her trembling through the cloth. What do you want? He asked. What belongs to me? His eyes moved toward Lily. Gideon's voice became cold. She is not property. No, but she is my blood. Lily shook her head. You are not my papa's. Everett looked offended, though his eyes stayed hard. That is what your mother taught you to say. My papa died before I was born. Your mother lied. Lily's face crumpled. Gideon stepped closer to Everett. You have said enough. Everett reached inside his coat and pulled out several folded papers. I have legal documents. Clara Parker was once Clara Shaw. She is still my wife. The words struck the room like thunder. Gideon did not move, but his mind raced. Clara had always called herself a widow. The men at the ranch believed her husband had died years earlier. Gideon had never asked for details. Everett continued. She left me and took my daughter. I have been looking for them for nearly 5 years. Lily stared at him. Mama said you hurt her. Everett's face tightened. Your mother fills your head with stories. Gideon took the papers from his hand and read them. There was a marriage record from Missouri, Clara Shaw and Everett Shaw. The date was 8 years earlier. There was also a letter from a lawyer stating that Everett intended to seek custody of Lily. Gideon handed the documents back. Papers do not explain why a woman told her daughter to run from you. My marriage is none of your business. You came into my house and frightened a child. It became my business the moment you crossed the door. Everett picked up his hat. I will return tomorrow with the sheriff. Clara will come with me and so will Lily. No. The single word made Everett stop. Gideon's expression did not change. You are not taking anyone from this ranch until I hear Clara's side. Everett smiled again, but there was no warmth in it. You are making a mistake, Mercer. People in town respect you. Do not throw that away for another man's wife. He put on his hat and walked out. Gideon watched him mount his horse and ride toward Dry Willow. When the rider disappeared beyond the gate, Lily began to cry. Gideon turned and knelt beside her. Mama did not lie, she said. He used to shout at her he broke things. One night he pushed her down the steps. Gideon's jaw tightened. Did he hurt you? Lily shook her head. Mama never let him. She took me and ran while he was gone. Why did she tell people he was dead? Because she said it was the only way he would stop finding us. Gideon called Wyatt into the house and ordered him to saddle 2 horses. Stay with Lily, Gideon said. Do not let anyone take her. Wyatt's expression became serious. No one will touch her. Gideon rode toward Clara's cabin faster than he had ridden in years. The small building stood near a line of cottonwood trees 6 miles south of the ranch. A wagon waited outside, and Dr. Webb's horse was tied near the fence. Gideon entered without ceremony. Clara lay on the bed, pale and weak. Mrs. Dalton sat beside her with a damp cloth. Dr. Webb was closing his medical bag. Clara opened her eyes. Mr. Mercer. Everett Shaw came to the ranch. Terror gave her strength. She pushed herself upright. Where is Lily? She is safe. Clara tried to stand. Gideon caught her before she fell. He will take her, she gasped. He said he would come back one day. Dr. Webb moved toward her. She needs rest. I need my daughter. You will have her, Gideon said, but first you are going to tell me everything. Clara looked toward Mrs. Dalton and the doctor. Both quietly stepped outside. For a long moment, Clara stared at her hands. I was 19 when I married Everett, she began. My father had died and my mother was ill. Everett owned a grain business in St. Joseph. He was charming when others were watching. Her voice shook. After the wedding, he changed. He controlled the money. He chose who I could speak to. He became angry over small things. When Lily was born, I thought he might soften. He did not, Gideon said. Clara shook her head. He hated that I cared for her more than I feared him. She pulled back one sleeve. A faded scar crossed her wrist. One night he returned after losing money at cards. Lily was 4. He demanded the small savings I had hidden for food. When I refused, he struck me and pushed me against the stove. Gideon's hands curled into fists. The next morning I took Lily and left. We moved from place to place. Every time Everett found a clue, we moved again. Why did he stop searching? He went to prison. Gideon's eyes narrowed. For what? He attacked a business partner who accused him of stealing. Everett nearly killed him. I thought he would be locked away for many years. Then Mrs. Dalton heard that he had been released. Clara looked toward the window. That is when I wrote the letter. Why did you not tell me? Because you gave me work without asking questions. I thought if you knew I had a living husband, you would think I brought trouble. You did not bring him here, he followed you. The town will not see it that way. Gideon thought about Everett's warning. Dry Willow was full of people who cared more about appearances than truth. Everett had legal papers and a polished manner. Clara had only her word and an old scar. Did you ever report what he did? No. Are there witnesses? My old neighbor saw him strike me once. Her name was Ruth Bell. She lived in St. Joseph. Anyone else? His former business partner, Daniel Cross. He knew what Everett was like. Where is Daniel now? I do not know. Gideon stood. We will find him. Clara stared at him. Why are you doing this? He looked down at her. This morning, your daughter walked 6 miles barefoot because she believed losing her mother's job would destroy her world. She should never carry that fear again. Clara's eyes filled with tears. You barely know us. I know enough. By late afternoon, Gideon brought Clara to Cedar Ridge in his wagon. Dr. Webb protested, but Gideon promised she would rest in one of the guest rooms. When Lily saw her mother, she ran across the yard. Mama! Clara opened her arms, and Lily climbed into them. They held each other tightly. Gideon turned away, giving them privacy, but he could still hear Clara whispering. I am sorry, my sweet girl. You should never have walked alone. I had to save your job. Clara began to cry. You are more important than any job. That evening, Gideon sent 2 trusted ranch hands toward St. Joseph with instructions to find Ruth Bell or Daniel Cross. He also rode into Dry Willow to speak with Sheriff Amos Reed. The sheriff was an older man with tired eyes and a careful way of speaking. Everett showed me his papers, Amos said. They appear real. Real papers do not make him a good father. No, but the law may give him rights. He beat Clara. Can she prove it? Not yet. Amos sighed. Then you need proof quickly. Everett filed a complaint this afternoon. He says Clara kidnapped Lily and has been hiding under a false name. Gideon leaned forward. When will the judge hear it? 3 days from now. And until then, Everett has agreed not to approach the ranch. You trust him? No. Neither man spoke for a moment. When Gideon returned to Cedar Ridge, night had fallen. He found Clara sitting on the porch wrapped in a blanket. Lily slept inside. I heard about the hearing, Clara said. Gideon sat beside her. I will not let him take her. You cannot promise that. I can promise I will fight. Clara looked at him in the moonlight. You could lose business because of me. Everett will spread lies. People will say you are protecting a married woman. Let them. You do not understand. He destroys everything he touches. Gideon turned toward her. Then he should never have touched your life. Clara lowered her eyes. He will not stop until he gets money or Lily. Why does he want her now? Clara's face changed. I have been asking myself the same thing. A horse moved near the barn. Gideon stood quickly. Wyatt came from the darkness, holding something in his hand. Boss, you need to see this. He gave Gideon a folded note. It had been tied to the ranch gate with black string. Gideon opened it. The message contained only one sentence. Give me the land papers Clara stole, or the girl will learn what her mother truly did. Gideon looked at Clara. Her face turned white. What land papers? He asked. Clara did not answer. She rose too quickly, and the blanket fell from her shoulders. Clara. She looked toward the dark fields, as if Everett might be watching from beyond them. Then she whispered the truth. The papers prove Everett murdered my father. Gideon stared at Clara beneath the porch lantern. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. The night wind moved through the cottonwood trees, and somewhere near the barn, a horse struck the ground with one hoof. What do you mean Everett murdered your father? Gideon asked. Clara lowered herself into the porch chair. My father owned 300 acres outside St. Joseph, she said. The land sat beside a new railroad route. Everett learned the railroad company wanted to buy it, but my father refused to sell. Her hands shook as she pulled the blanket around her shoulders. Everett began visiting him without telling me. He tried to convince father to sign the land over to me, knowing that once we were married, he could control it. Father became suspicious and wrote everything down. What happened to him? One night, Everett told me Father had fallen from his horse near the river. Everyone believed it was an accident. I believed it too. Tears filled Clara's eyes. Months later, I found Father's journal hidden behind a loose board in his study. He had written that Everett threatened him. He also kept letters from the railroad company and a signed statement from Daniel Cross. Everett's former partner, Gideon said. Clara nodded. Daniel saw Everett follow my father toward the river on the night he died. Later, Everett admitted that they had fought. Daniel believed Everett pushed him from the ridge. Where are the papers now? I hid them before I ran. Where? In an old church outside St. Joseph, beneath the floor near the altar. Gideon looked toward the dark road. Everett thinks you brought them here. He has searched for them for years. That is why he wants Lily. He knows threatening her is the only way to control me. Gideon rose. Then we will get the papers before the hearing. It is too far. Not if we ride through the night. You cannot leave Lily unprotected. I am not leaving her unprotected. Gideon called Wyatt and explained everything. The foreman listened without interrupting. I will keep 10 men around the house, Wyatt promised. No stranger gets through the gate. Gideon turned to Clara. You are staying here. No. You are weak. And I am the only person who knows exactly where the papers are. Before Gideon could argue, she stood. He has spent years making me afraid. I will not hide while another man fights my battle. Gideon saw the determination in her face and knew he could not stop her. They left Cedar Ridge before midnight. Clara rode in a covered wagon while Gideon drove. 2 ranch hands followed on horseback. They traveled north beneath a sky crowded with stars, stopping only to water the horses. By morning, Clara's fever had returned slightly, but she refused to turn back. Near noon, they reached the abandoned church. The building stood alone beside a dry field. One window was broken, the roof sagged, and weeds covered the front steps. Clara entered slowly. Dust filled the air, and sunlight fell through holes in the roof. She crossed to the old altar and knelt beside a loose floorboard. Her fingers searched along the edge. It should be here. Gideon helped lift the board. Beneath it was an empty space. Clara's face went pale. No. She reached deeper into the hole. They are gone. A voice came from behind them. Looking for these. Everett stood in the doorway, holding a leather folder. One of Gideon's ranch hands lay unconscious outside. The second stood several feet away with his hands raised while a stranger pointed a rifle toward him. Everett stepped inside. You always were predictable, Clara. Gideon moved in front of her. How did you find us? I followed you. Everett smiled. I knew Clara would lead me to the papers eventually. He held up the folder. Now I can finally destroy them. Clara's voice trembled. You killed my father. He should have accepted my offer. The words came out with such calm cruelty that even Everett's hired man looked disturbed. Gideon took one step forward. Everett pulled a pistol from beneath his coat. Do not be foolish, Mercer. Gideon stopped. Everett looked at Clara. You could have had a comfortable life. All you had to do was obey me. You never wanted a wife, Clara said. You wanted someone you could own. Everett's eyes hardened. And now I want what your father denied me. The land belongs to the railroad company now. The company never completed the purchase. The property passed to you after your father died, and because you are still my wife, part of it belongs to me. Clara shook her head. I will never sign it over. Everett raised the pistol toward Gideon. Then I will remove the man giving you courage. A gunshot echoed through the church. Clara screamed. Everett's pistol fell from his hand. Sheriff Amos Reed stood behind him, smoke rising from his own weapon. The bullet had struck Everett's arm. Wyatt and 4 ranch hands rushed through the door and seized Everett's hired man. Gideon stared at the sheriff. "How did you know?" "Wyatt found Everett's tracks near the ranch," Amos said. "He realized you were being followed and came for me." Wyatt stepped forward. "I sent another rider to watch Lily and brought the sheriff after you." Everett tried to reach for the leather folder, but Amos kicked it away. "You heard him," Clara said. "He admitted what he did." "I heard enough," Amos replied. Gideon picked up the folder and opened it. Inside were the letters, Daniel Cross's statement, and Clara's father's journal. There was also another document. Gideon unfolded it. It was a copy of Everett's prison release record. Attached to it was a letter showing he had lied about his identity when he filed the custody claim. Sheriff Amos placed iron cuffs around Everett's wrists. "You are under arrest for extortion, threatening a child, attempted murder, and suspicion of killing Clara's father." Everett glared at Clara. "You think this is over?" Clara walked toward him. For years, she had feared his voice, his anger, and the sound of his footsteps outside a door. Now he stood wounded and trapped, no longer the giant who had ruled her life. "Yes," she said, "it is over." The custody hearing took place 2 days later in Dry Willow. Word of Everett's arrest had spread through the town. Every bench in the courthouse was filled. Clara sat beside Gideon while Lily held her hand. Everett stood before the judge with his arm in a sling and a deputy beside him. Judge Henry Lawson read the evidence carefully. Daniel Cross had also been found and brought to town. He confirmed the statement he had written years earlier and told the court everything he knew about Clara's father's death. When the judge finished, he looked at Everett. "You abandoned your wife and child, committed violence against Clara Parker, filed false claims, and used a custody threat to obtain property. You have no legal right to take Lily from her mother." Lily leaned against Clara. The judge continued, "This court recognizes Clara's right to live apart from you. Your marriage is dissolved immediately. You will remain in custody until you are transferred to St. Joseph for trial." Everett's face twisted with rage. "You cannot do this." "I just did," the judge answered. 2 deputies led him from the courtroom. For the first time in years, Clara watched Everett walk away without fearing that he would return. Outside the courthouse, townspeople gathered around her. Some apologized for believing Everett's lies, others offered help. Clara accepted none of their pity, but she thanked those who spoke kindly. Gideon stood a short distance away with Lily. The little girl looked up at him. "Does this mean he cannot take me?" "He cannot. And Mama does not have to run anymore." "No." Lily smiled, but then her expression became worried. "Will we still live at Cedar Ridge?" Gideon crouched beside her. "That depends on your mother." Clara approached slowly. "You protected us," she said. "You risked your ranch and your life." "I would do it again. I do not know how to repay you. I did not do it for payment." Gideon looked at Lily, then back at Clara. "The ranch house was empty before the 2 of you came. I did not understand how empty until Lily walked through the door holding your apron." Clara's breath caught. Gideon removed his hat. "I care for you, Clara, more than I expected, more than I know how to explain." Tears rose in her eyes. "I care for you too." He took her hand. "I am not asking because you need protection. You have already proved you can protect yourself. I am asking because I want you beside me. I want Lily's laughter in my house. I want every morning, every hard season, and every peaceful evening with both of you." Lily looked between them. "Are you asking Mama to marry you?" Gideon almost laughed. "Yes." Lily turned toward Clara. "You should say yes." Clara smiled through her tears. "Why?" "Because he lets me put too much jam on my bread." Gideon laughed then, a deep sound that surprised everyone around him. Clara placed her hand against his cheek. "Yes," she whispered, "I will marry you." They were married 6 weeks later beneath the cottonwood trees at Cedar Ridge Ranch. The ceremony was simple. Wyatt stood beside Gideon, Mrs. Dalton helped Clara with her dress, and Dr. Webb gave Lily a small basket of wildflowers. When the minister asked who gave Clara away, Lily stepped forward. "I do," she said proudly, "but only because Mr. Mercer promised to keep her safe." After the wedding, Clara did not return to work as the ranch cook. Instead, she managed the household and began teaching several ranch children in the front room. Gideon built a small schoolhouse near the ranch the following spring. Lily was its first student. Years passed, and Cedar Ridge became known not only for strong cattle and good land, but for the school where every child was welcome, whether their family had money or not. Clara's father's land was sold to the railroad company. She used part of the money to support the school and families who had nowhere else to turn. One evening, many years later, Gideon found the old flowered apron folded inside a wooden chest. Lily, now nearly grown, stood beside him. "Do you remember carrying this into the house?" he asked. She smiled. "I remember being afraid you would send me away. I remember thinking you were the bravest person I had ever seen." Lily touched the faded cloth. "I only wanted to save Mama's job." Gideon looked through the window. Clara stood outside the schoolhouse, laughing with the children beneath the evening sun. "You did more than that," he said. "You saved all of us." The apron was later framed and hung inside the schoolhouse. Beneath it, Clara placed a small wooden sign. It read, "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is taking the next step when someone you love is waiting at the end of the road."